Mike, do you like having multiple bye weeks in a season, or does it throw things off, or do you prefer to have the two rest weeks as opposed to one?
Shoot, I don't know. You kind of take them when they come. The very worst is to have the first week the bye week, or the last week the bye week, where you're just playing them all together. I don't think it's bad, and I think, where you go 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 is a pretty good deal. Just looking at schedules over the years, it seemed like Notre Dame used to try to do that, specifically try to do that, or some of those independents, it's been a while since I've looked over schedules and studied how folks do it,
Has it been difficult to manage this specific schedule with, I think you guys have one home game in a span of 56 days, and you got the two road games between the Colorado game, and it's just kind of a weird schedule to manage maybe?
Well, we'd like to have more home games, the more home games the better, and then it seemed like we have a chunk in a row that's on the road, so yeah, we'd rather be at home.
Mike, on the subject of buys, this is the second time that both you and your opponent are coming off a bye. Do you know, was that a point of emphasis this year in the making of the?
I wondered that. I had the same question. When I don't know, about the middle of last week when I saw Cal had a bye too. I had the same question. I don't know, but I did wonder the same thing. Didn't bother to ask, but it's not an emphasis that I've heard, but that's how it turned out. And I know they got some kind of committee that sorts schedules, and they give you 3 models, and you pick one, and maybe they'll do what you select. Generally, they don't, and so then then they hand you your schedule.
And last bye week, you had some disruptions. Did you get accomplished what you wanted to get accomplished during that week?
I don't think so. It was too tall of a load to totally get accomplished. I think we're further along now as far as all the coaches and players kind of settled in, and also I think we've reduced the package some to our benefit, and then I think we're further along than we were. But no, it was. The last one was a fairly disruptive bye week. So far, this one's been quite peaceful by comparison.
And did that first bye week disrupt recruiting as well?
I don't think so. Not slightly. A couple guys by a day. Not a ton, though. Not a bunch. As a matter of fact, now we're kind of having to pick our days when we go out a little bit, because you get X number. So.
Why do you feel Cal's defense has kind of been able to hold you guys in check as far as points per game over the past 2 seasons?
For the same reason they've been able to hold everybody in check for the last 2 seasons, because they have a good defense, and that's what good defenses do. And so then, and I think, he's been a career defensive coordinator and always run a good defense. And as a matter of fact, there's a ton of people that borrow and draw from his defense. So.
What are your thoughts on Evan Weaver leading the nation in tackles right now?
Good for Evan.
Cal lost a lot of speed last week at receiver. Is there any difference in planning without all that speed on the outside?
I don't know. I'm not aware that they lost a bunch of speed. Probably not. They got other receivers too. And, it seems like they're all quality receivers every time I see who they're taking. And, a lot of times, both us and them are on them. So,
getting back to Evan Weaver, what is it about him that allows him to have that much success that he does?
He's big. He moves well. He's always been a pretty gifted guy. This is a hell of a deal here. See that? You like that? He's a big, gifted guy. He's got long limbs, and he runs well for a guy his size. So he's bigger than most linebackers, but also runs well.
And getting back to the Cal offense, it's no secret they've struggled through this losing streak. And talked briefly about their injuries, but what have you seen on film as far as maybe some reasons for their struggles offensively? And is that something you can take advantage of?
Well, no more injuries than anybody else has, but I think you just worry about improving yourself. You just worry about what you're doing and doing your job and getting better at it. I mean, and Cal presents some problems, but it's for that very reason, because they do a pretty good job of playing together, and they're a synchronized team, and they do their jobs well together, and they're fairly disciplined about doing their job compared to some of the other teams.
Because of injury, they've had 3 quarterbacks now start for them. How do you guys kind of prepare for them defensively? And they also had kind of different offenses than we've seen when they played against Utah.
Well, they're similar style quarterbacks, so you pretty much should prepare the same. And then, as far as difference in offense, it was kind of a subtle difference. So you just try to be sound and play against it. So.
Kind of going back really fast to the Oregon game, close games have been kind of tough this year, 1-3 in those close games. But last year, it seems like any given year can kind of swing either way. You guys won almost all those close games. Is there something you can kind of point to now that stands out as to why those games are tougher this year?
Well, we just have to close it out. I think if we a couple of them, if we play together better on defense, as far as closing it out, I think some of the disruption we've had on defense, I think, has hurt that effort a little bit. But I do think they're getting better and coming together. And then, a couple of those games we've played these teams better than anybody else has because they're quality teams that we're playing against. We have, none of them are bad teams. So, it's just part of it.
Obviously, your team generally always plays pretty hard, but coming off of a game where you nearly beat, a top 15 team, is there any change in energy or kind of excitement around the team or the way they're approaching practice heading into this week?
Well, we played well. We played well. We just got to be even better at doing our job, just improve that. I mean, if you want to solve virtually any problem, let's do your job the best you can, and then you play the best you can, and then in the end, the score turns out whatever it is. But the solution to every bit of that is just to do your job. You want to tackle somebody, do your job. You want to catch a ball, block, and do your job, and then catch the ball. I mean, and then and if you do it over and over again pretty well, and then you total it up at the end, you'll be pretty good. So no, there's not all this secret stuff that we got a closet full of. Material that there's something we overlooked that we're going to make a list and check it twice and do that over again type of deal.
It's been a bit of a struggle on the road at Cal since 2013 was the last time you guys beat them. Is that a tough place to play, or is that just a bit of an aberration there?
What's that?
You guys haven't beat Cal on the road since 2013. Is that just a tough place to play, or is that a bit of just an aberration?
We've won more games than they have. Is that an aberration? What kind of question is that? All right, next question.
Can it be difficult for a team to reset their goals maybe? Because I know before the season a lot of guys talked about winning the Pac-12. And when that doesn't become a reality, does the team have to reshift its goals or reset expectations, or do you guys even talk about that?
Well, if anybody that thinks like that, I mean, they're distracted by not being in the present. They need to focus on one play at a time. I mean, all you have is the next play. This business of, I mean, that's like saying your goal is to live to be 100. Well, why don't you just live tomorrow? So I mean, no, we need to be as good as we can in practice this next day. Then we got to do it the day after that, then the day after that, and play the best game that we possibly can, and then continue to do it from there. I plan to be 150, so what it's what I do between now and then that counts. So.
Can you talk about Fred and how he's kind of been a centerpiece for you guys and maybe a model of consistency on the offensive line for the past few years?
Well, he impressively started as a freshman, played quite a lot as a freshman. Actually played some, but then started pretty much after that. And I think it has been impressive. Part of it is he's a smart guy, and part of it is that he's a good player, you know. And I think that he has provided some stability, and did when he was young, at a younger age than most players are able to do it. So I think that's been impressive, and I think he has had an impressive career.
And also Will Rogers, can you talk about his season? He seems to be someone who kind of sets a tone for the D line and seems to maybe kind of bring a certain edge to that D tackle spot.
Yeah, I think. Well, Will's gotten better and better. Part of it, you can see he already looked good when he came here. Already had a good body when he came here. Already was explosive when he came here, but it's gotten better and better and better. When he first got here, he was all over the place, and then over time, he's gotten where he's just a sharper, more consistent guy, and continues to work on that. I think the best games are ahead for Will.
Do you guys ever feel like you have to reel him in a little bit as far as his energy? And he's got a few unsportsmanlike penalties, and
He's fired up all the time. You know, he's always fired up. But the one thing I like is his mistakes are typically aggressive mistakes. It's a guy it's not somebody that's unmotivated. It's a guy that's trying to do a little too much. You know.
Then, Coach, just getting back to Cal, they also have a second local player in Ben Moose, who obviously comes from a family that has strong ties to Washington State. Do you have any sort of relationship with Ben? Any fond memories of the two of you together?
Yeah, Ben's always happy. I like that. Ben's always in a tremendously good mood, so he's kind of a carefree guy. He was always huge. I remember in 8th grade when I first met him, he was in like 8th grade. Then he was huge, and then him and my son used to work out up there with Lascalzo and those guys, And then he's a great guy, And obviously, I know Bill better than I know Ben, but no, he's a fantastic guy. Like, if you're in a bad mood, hang out with Ben Moose for a little while, and then he's sort of quiet, but once you get him rolling, I mean, it's pretty good. And then the best is to watch Bo and Ben together because they're both very competitive, even though they're several years apart. And they'll compete and spat and argue about nearly everything. It's very entertaining. And they'll also kind of start going to town on one another, too. And even though Ben's younger, he's big enough to hold his own, despite the fact Bo was a nose guard in this conference. So.
Any questions on the phone line for Coach Leach? Questions on the phone?
Yeah, hi. This is Nick of Associated Press, and I do have a question. Coach, can you talk a little bit about the play of Anthony Gordon this season? He seems to have picked up right where Minshew left off last year.
Yeah, Anthony's playing real well. As a matter of fact, has more yards and touchdowns. No, he's. I think he was. I think one thing that helped Anthony, first of all, he's a sharp guy. He's a confident guy, and he's a smart guy. And then he had Luke Falk and his, just kind of monk-like work ethic and film to follow. Then he had Minshew's kind of enthusiasm and charisma to follow. And so, I mean, I think he's been very lucky. The guys that played ahead of him that he got to learn from, and but he's capitalized on it pretty good and throws the ball extremely well, and the ball comes off his hand real quick, and he's got quick feet too, so he can stay out of trouble if they get back there.
Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions on the phone line for Coach?
Yes. Hey, Coach, Jessamine McIntyre here. I wanted to ask you this last time, but Anthony Gordon and Brandon Arconato have a crazy connection, and Brandon wasn't available for a little bit. I was wondering what he was able to do off the field to maintain that.
Well, he just, first, I think several years' experience. I think experience and repetition's the biggest thing. Arconato came in undersized, one of those guys that, was pretty small out of high school, walked on, got bigger, got stronger, and grew. And now he's one of the best receivers in the conference and maybe the nation. And he is has a good, just a good connection with Gordon. And part of it is he's just a real precise guy. He's always where, execution, pretty much the definition of execution is being where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there. And I think Brandon Arconato is one of the very best at being where he's supposed to be when he's supposed to be there. And as a result, the execution's sharp, even though there's some guys that are more athletic and faster than him.
And when he wasn't available, what was he able to do during practice that we might not know about, if you're willing to share a little bit of that?
No, he'd watch film, do exercises. And but the thing is this is his fifth year here, so, he was pretty experienced to begin with, as far as that went. So I don't think, I think he mentally stayed sharp.
And on the defensive side of the ball, Skylar Thomas, how do you feel he has looked back in a position that is at least more in nature with what he's played before?
I think he looks better now. Skylar always does a good job running to the ball, especially if he knows exactly where to go. Skylar plays with a lot of intensity, and I think Skylar's playing better now than he was earlier in the year.
Do you think that's because of the position change?
I'm not sure exactly. I imagine that contributed to it, but I also think that we simplified some things on defense, which I think was beneficial, not just him, but to everybody.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep.
Any other questions on the phone line for Coach? Okay, back in the room.
Like back to Gordon and the QBs he's worked with, he seems to spend a lot of time during games talking to Tinsley. Is Trey kind of his eyes on the sideline?
They've known each other forever. Tinsley knows the offense backwards and forwards. He's a very sharp guy. And, we do have Tinsley on the sideline, looking for things out there on the field because he's good at being conscious of it, but also just real smart about how things are supposed to unfold. And my guess, I think Tinsley's going to be a really good coach someday.
Anything else for Coach?
What does it say about Trey to be able to stay engaged? I'm sure after losing the job, your senior season, some players might have just kind of sat out and not really wanted to help. What does it say about Trey to be engaged and help the other guys and help Anthony so much?
Well, Trey's a tremendous example of what a teammate's supposed to be. Because Trey's talented enough to start at most teams in this conference, and. No, I just have a tremendous amount of respect for, his commitment and, what he does. And I think there's a lot of intangible things as far as the locker room, holding the locker room and just being a good example, like I say, what a teammate is and what it means to be on a team. I think Trey Tinsley personifies that.
Are him engaged rotating as the backup right now? Is it just kind of who's playing better at the moment if you need to go to one of those guys?
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty accurate.
Then I know you can't talk about specific recruits, but what does it say about you guys, your guys' efforts on the recruiting trail when, say, you guys identify someone and then later on a bunch of other kind of Power 5 schools, big time schools are starting to look at that same player, but you guys were kind of there first?
Yeah, they think we know what we're doing, I guess. So, yeah, that's happened some. Yeah. So if you If you don't offer a guy, you're not going to get him. But if you do offer a guy, you'll end up with a bunch of competition on him. Yeah.
And do you have any update on Dominic Civil? Do you expect him to play?
No, I would like an update on that. Yeah, shoot, you always remind me, and I need to follow up on that. Yeah.
Are you guys still planning to move forward with redshirting Jameer Calvin too?
Yeah, I mean, at this point.
Last chance for Coach.
Just a two-part question here. First one, did you do anything fun for Halloween?
Yeah, it worked. Yeah, I sat up in that room up top there, and I watched film, and cut-ups and stuff. You know, I laughed, I cried. You know, it was extremely fulfilling. You know, it's sometimes exciting, felt dangerous at times, but then, you know, just had the time of my life up there, and took some notes, and then then I went home. You know, drove through the hill to see the costumes, but it was too early. I mean, the good stuff obviously happened later, which maybe you guys can tell me about that. And then went to the house. The trick-or-treaters were pretty much gone. Thought I might get a few stragglers, and then pretty much got ready for the next day. But now our staff, especially the ones with young kids, you know, able to get home and do a little trick-or-treat and all that stuff. So that was good.
And the second part of the question, do you think the day after Halloween's too early to start playing Christmas music?
Yes, I do, but they will. I mean, they're going to anyway. I do, but you know, especially with the economy rocking and rolling like it is now, they're going to get a head start on selling everything they can. I mean, you know, so yeah. My wife mentioned that. I haven't noticed a lot of Christmas music, but you know, I don't watch the TV as much. And then if I have something recorded, I fast forward through the commercials. So.
All right, go ahead, Rob.
All right, Coach, that was actually the SWX question of the week. So I guess we'll make a pivot here and go with the Halloween theme. If you were preparing yourself for a zombie apocalypse, what kinds of things would you make sure you pack in, and security-wise and all that kind of good stuff?
Okay, now, and I know this is a minority opinion. And I can say that safely with the success of the shows and the movies. But I find zombies to be the most boring of the monsters, because everything with zombies is redundant. So you basically have dead bodies walking around that get parts chopped off and then continue to walk around to some degree. And it's pretty undefined what it takes to kill a zombie. You just keep chopping away at them, evidently. And without any particular clue on how they become zombies, it's almost like a disease. So I guess it's sort of like AIDS for dead bodies. And then, except for they live instead of die or something. I don't know. But I don't fully understand the zombie thing. And what I don't like about zombies is they're incredibly redundant. You know, here's a zombie. All right, we chopped him. Okay, now get the other zombie. Okay, boom, and you know the ash or decayed flesh flies somewhere, and then you know, and it's so after somebody's killed 3 zombies, I mean, it's all the same to me. It's like, and then you wait there for an hour and a half. I honestly think. I don't think I'd have to store that much. I'd try to store all my favorite things and, you know, have a nice, you know, locked-in space. Zombies seem to be able to climb, so I don't think height is a big a deal. And obviously I'd want to blast a couple just to see how that comes together. But I actually think a zombie apocalypse, I would die of boredom before anything else. I think, you know, some of my neighbors would start shooting zombies. Okay, here's another one. Okay, there's another one. All right, another one. Another zombie. Oh, okay. this is a really ugly zombie. Wow, pretty attractive for a zombie. And then, no, I think I'd die of boredom. I really do. I've been kind of waiting for the zombie thing to run its course, go back to vampires or something that's far more captivating, or something that's not quite as science fiction, even like an old Frankenstein or something, or ghosts, the poltergeist thing. And ghosts are kind of fashionable now, and hopefully they'll overtake the zombies. But I'm ready for the zombie thing to be over. And I realize, talking to my kids and my son-in-law and all that, who they're zombie crazed, so they're obviously part of the problem. But now I, for one, am ready to move on from zombies. We need something else, and I don't want it to be some science fiction deal either.
You guys good? Thanks, Coach.
All right, thank you.